Welcome back. I'm glad to see you back ready for Module 6 of the Accelerated 4-Hour Kickstart Your Book Masterclass. Today, the outline of topics is, of course, your working outline. We're going to talk about what it is and what it is not. And then I'm going to walk you through. There's probably other methods, but this is a method that I think works really well. So it's the random brainstorm, how to think about grouping your ideas, and then some hints for you around how to group all the ideas and things to think about before you get to a place where you think, okay, now I've got a working outline. So we've come from the module talking all about narrative plot structure and the different ways you can structure and organize your memoir. And we've kept that discussion, if you remember, within the three-part structure. So there are options within the three-part structure, but the three-part structure really works. It's a great place to start. There are other structures as you become more competent and confident in structuring large pieces of editorial work. So what we haven't done is connected those ideas about structure into our content, our own story, our life story, the elements that we're going to include, and how to think about bringing those two notions together. So that is what we are doing today. So remember those concepts, but put them aside for the moment while we then dig in, and you'll start to see a little bit later in this session, you'll start to see things that remind you where some of the things we talked about in the narrative plot structure module come together. Okay, so what a working outline is your map. It helps you as the author come from point A to B to C to D, all the way through to where you're going. It helps you organize your thoughts as you are writing. And quite often as authors, we will find, oh, I'm starting to write about this subject, and on I go. Oh, wait a minute, that actually belongs in that piece that I thought might fit here belongs somewhere else. So it just gives you a way to think about, in a little bit of a big picture way, what you're writing about. And it also helps to focus your efforts. So you could say, and this is something that I recommend to authors quite often, is we get to the working outline and it's like, okay, write me that piece. So you can say to yourself, all right, today I'm going to write that thing from my outline. I'm going to just write that. That's all I'm going to think about. That's all I'm going to write about. And then you get that written, and then you go to the next one. And you don't necessarily have to write them in order, but because you know notionally where they fit, you have a place to go with them and kind of keep you on track and make you feel like you're writing with purpose, even if you're not writing in order. What a working outline is not, it's not locked. It's not final. Many authors that I speak with are often, if it's their first time working on a large editorial project, they're often surprised at, here's the working outline. We wrote all this material. What do you mean this is not the final order of the book, or not necessarily the final order of the book? So this is both good and bad. On one hand, it gives you some freedom to say, okay, I'm coming up with my working outline. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so you've got a method that you can move forward. And on the other hand, you may find that you've got your working outline, you write your manuscript, and you think you're done, only to find on read through that your structure still needs some work. So it is a working outline or a draft outline. It is not the final outline. It might turn out to be the final outline, but likely not. So how do I suggest that you come up with your working outline? This is my favorite way. I love brainstorming. I like, all my decisions in my life are made through a brainstorming. Okay, what are all the possible options, and not discarding anything. So I want you to think about this. Now that we've come through all of the other modules, you know what memoir is. It is not your entire life story. It is a particular theme or a ring around a set of experiences with a particular theme or message or set of common denominators, if you like. within that, what are all the things that you want to talk about? And here, I want you to make it fun. If brainstorming is fun for you, I hope it is. It's fun for me. But you could do it in any number of ways. You can use index cards. I remember when I was working on my very first documentary, and I just was overwhelmed with how much information there was. I literally sat on the floor with those 4x6 recipe index cards and wrote the big areas and spread them all out on the floor around me. And it was like, okay, what are the themes here? How does this connect with that? And that's how I came up with the structure for my first documentary. And lo and behold, I won some awards with that. But so you might want to do it digitally. We're all in the digital age. I don't even have recipe cards or index cards anymore, but you could use a flip chart. You could engage people that that know about your project, and have somebody write them on a board. You can use sticky notes. I love sticky notes too. An idea at a time. I've got some here. I like to have different colors, so you can use sticky notes. You could also use a voice recorder, and then use an AI generated tool to transcribe them afterwards for you, or make your own notes. So whatever is going to work for you. Just let it be something that is going to be comfortable, so that you can have fun with kind of this notion of an idea dump. And it's going to be messy. I don't want you to worry about whether there's any order. And, I made reference to, I'm just looking for another color of sticky note here, but I don't know where I put them. If you do try to think, I'm going to put these kind of ideas on this color sticky note, for example, and these ideas on that, I'd like you not to get bogged down with categorization right now. I just want you to get them all out, get them all in front of you, and don't worry about whether they're in any particular order or any grouping, because that is what is going to come next. So when you do have all the possible ideas down, now you can start organizing the ideas. And again, depending on the tool that you're using to capture your brainstorm ideas, it may be that you're organizing your index card or organizing your sticky notes in columns on a wall, or whatever you're doing. But I want you to think now about grouping them. And here are some suggestions of, and this actually can work very well, and you may start to see some connection now with the things we were talking about in the previous module on narrative plot structure. But so you can think of grouping the information in backstory, things that set the stage for the reader to understand how you arrived at the starting point. Now, backstory doesn't mean everything that happened since you were born to the place you start. We'll come to that again in a moment. And then you can have one group of ideas that represent the start, the thoughts, the events, the situations that trigger the start of, remember, your internal journey and the internal journey that you're depicting in your memoir. Third grouping area is the challenge or the problem, where it got hard for you. And this could be a big long section, that's fine, or a big, a stack quite deep, that's okay. But when you're encountering difficulties, internal, even external, often these are the events that trigger us to want to write the memoir in the first place. The next grouping category is learnings. And these are not the big final lessons. These are the first seeds of awareness that things might be different, that you are becoming aware that you need to think or do something differently, that the world might be different than you thought it was before. And then the fifth area of grouping is a setback. You've tried something new, and whenever we try something new, either a changed behavior or a new way of thinking, or a new belief, there is always some kind of a pushback, change back force. It's a push-pull energy that tries to put things back to the way they have been. So you want to think about those topic areas in your brainstorm that fall into that category. And then the next category or grouping is the growth, where you are finding you're having more successes, at your new ways of thinking, being, doing, whatever it is, then you are having setbacks. And then another category is change. Where are you responding, both internally and externally, in a new way, repeatedly? How are you changing from the way that you would normally or you have previously responded to circumstances, situations, and events? And then the eighth category to group your brainstorm notes in is who you are now, how you are different from the way that you were at the beginning of the period that you're writing your story. So if you get all your brainstorm notes in these groups, you will pretty soon start to see that there is a good structure starting to come alive. Ooh, there's that word, structure. So if you really want to geek out on this stuff, that the grouping that I was just talking you through is a little bit loosely based on the hero's journey. If you want to geek out on this, go research hero's journey. This is a hero's journey wheel. And you can read all about how this is. Now, this hero's journey is any action, adventure, drama, movie, feature film, cartoon. If you start to notice that almost every blockbuster follows the hero's journey. The story structure follows the hero's journey. And so quickly walking you through what it is the first step is limited awareness of the problem. Second, increased awareness. Third, resistance to change. Fourth, overcoming resistance. Fifth, committing to change. Sixth element on there, almost down at the bottom, is experimenting with first change. So you see, we're almost halfway through and we're still only experimenting with first change. 7 is preparing for a big change. 8 is attempting a big change. 9 is consequences of the first change attempt, steps taken and those setbacks. The 10th step on there, now we're 3/4 of the way around. Renewed dedication to change. 11th is the final big change, the final big push to change. And then 12th is the mastery of the problem. So if you take this wheel and keep it in front of you and maybe go back and watch, I know these are old and outdated now, but the movie that I was talking about, movie series that I was talking about, is Indiana Jones with Harrison Ford. So those are great movies to go back and watch when you want to have the hero's journey in front of you and you just look, oh yeah, I can totally see that's how they've structured the story. So you don't have to go down this road if you find it confusing, and there are other ways. You don't have to adhere yourself to this the hero's journey when you're coming up with your outline, but sometimes it can help so that you can see, oh, there is a method here. And just to go back, so when I've suggested that you group all your brainstorming, you can see when you look at it next to the hero's journey, they're not 12 sections here, but we are kind of getting your materials organized in a way that looks like a narrative arc. And it is a narrative arc. Okay. So now you've got your groupings in your 8 categories. Now I want you to kind of have fun with it. Take a look at the topics that you've got in each group. Likely you will find that a topic on your sticky note or wherever it is might fit in more than one group, and you're going to need to make a decision. Or perhaps it is two treatments of a topic that may fit in more than one category. But so take a look at all of those and then think about each group. Now, I'm a pretty big fan of keeping, that narrative arc, those 8 groupings that we talked about. They work pretty well once you get a good narrative going that tells the story pretty easily. The reader kind of gets a good sense of where you're going. But there might be ways you might decide that you're going to change some things around. So play with it. And you should start to have a aha moment where it's like, oh yeah, okay, I can see I can see my book starting to take shape. And that's when you start to write your outline out in a way that you will come back to it and refer to it as you start writing. Now, just a final check though, you're going to take each topic, each group, and do a three-part kind of question for yourself. First of all, does this topic align with my purpose and goals and objectives for the book? Remember back to one of the first modules where we had you dig into what your why is for writing the book. Just make sure that, does it align with that? The second question with each topic is, does it align with serving my reader? We've talked about who your reader is, how to think about who your reader is, how your book is going to help the reader do, whatever it is, even if it's connect and feel, like somebody else understands their journey. So is this topic going to help my ideal reader with what they want, need, and expect? And then the final question is, does this topic align with the theme of the memoir? And again, remember, we are talking memoir, not autobiography. This is not the entire story of your life. It is entirely probable that you, in your brainstorm, you've included some materials that really fall outside the parameters of the theme of your memoir. So your memoir is even your life story, and you can write an autobiography, and that's fine, and this kind of works for that as well. But it is one specific type of memory experience or period of time that has its own internal growth arc, if you like. Backstory, for example, is only important to include when it provides context directly related to the main storyline of your memoir. The fact that I was born in Regina and moved to Kelvington when I was 2 years old is irrelevant to most things unless I'm writing a story about my connection to my Saskatchewan farming roots, if that makes sense. So the summary of the steps now for coming up with your working outline. You're going to brainstorm. You're going to use whatever your favorite method is: index cards, sticky notes, voice notes, a document, pen and paper notepad. You're going to group similar topics from your brainstorm into these 8 categories: backstory, the start, your challenges, what you're learning, setbacks, growth, change, and what you're becoming. Then you're going to play with the order. You're going to see what makes sense. You're going to put them into the groups first. Then you're going to play with the order and just do a quick double check. And then you're going to do a final. Before you start to write it down, you're going to check against your purpose. You're going to check it against your goals, your objectives, the reader, and the theme of your memoir. And then you're going to have a working outline, and then you're going to be ready to get writing. So when you're ready to get writing and you've got your outline beside you, next we are going to talk about perspectives and truth. So we'll see you in the next video.